this was the place we wanted to call home. I was the BRAC spokesman over there at Team Redstone for 3 of those years, and I had the privilege of promoting Huntsville as one of the greatest places to live in this country. And you know why? Because it is. I spent 27 years in the Army, serving my country and fellow soldiers with passion and integrity. Now, I want to serve South Huntsville with the same passion and integrity, because this is my home now, and I want to be in there with you, fighting the fight. Thank you all very much. Well, I've done my homework. I believe TIFs are the answer for South Parkway. I've seen it. I know it's worked in this town. Since 2000, we've had 4 TIFs, but none of them have been in South of Huntsville. They've all been somewhere else. Now, what's the big deal about the TIFs? I hadn't heard it discussed as large and small TIFs, but I can tell you that when you use a tax increment funding, there's a payback time on the loan, but after the loan's paid back, all the money that comes in from the real estate property tax, and while the whole time you're getting your taxes off retail, the city is getting, and part of the problem is where's the money going? We all have stand up here and said we want transparency. Where is the money going? I would argue that of those 4 TIFs that are not in our area, $14 million more revenue has increased in our city since those 4 TIFs went into play. $1.2 million of those dollars have gone to the Huntsville City Schools. But then that begs the question, where? Okay, transparency is what it's all about, but I do believe tax increment funding, and I do believe Hazen Square, but I also do believe Landing's a place to look, but when I was interviewed about this one day, I also said, why don't we look at the right side of the bridge before you go over the bridge over to Southeast, down the South Bridge over the river. And everybody looked at me and they said, well, that's the government. We can work with the government, the federal government, on doing a TIF in that corner if it's possible. I haven't looked at it yet, but why not? We're doing it at the front gate of Redstone Arsenal, and it's going to be a win for this town. It's going to be a win for this town. Thank you very much. Okay. First of all, I don't support the apartment complex whatsoever. 0. Second of all, the issue we had with it all was about transparency and about knowing it after it already happened. Third of all, we got some great Americans here fighting down in our state to help us with transparency on, so we know about it ahead of time, if it's going to happen. But more importantly, let's talk about the quadplex issue. First of all, we need equality amongst all of Huntsville. It all doesn't need to come to South Huntsville. If it's equality amongst Huntsville, then, and it's something that's federally mandated, we got to look at it. So let's talk about quadplexes, for instance. One of the issues we have with the problem with quadplexes and other places is the quadplex was owned by 4 different owners. One of them took great care of it, the other one took great care of it, the other 2 didn't do anything. They were slumlords. 2 were slumlords, 2 took great care of it. At least if you went with a quadplex that was owned by the government, they would fix the quadplex up to standard, and if I read the rules right, they maintain it to standard. So there's lesser of all evils here, folks, and I would certainly be supportive as long as it's equal amongst all of Huntsville. We're not getting all of it. 2, we know about it ahead of time. And 3, we also take some time and look at a place like Louisville, Kentucky that has done this. And they've done a Hope 6 grant, and they've had workers there. And more importantly, when it's all said and done, hang in with the guys, or hang in with Mike Balls and the Sanfords. They're fighting down the state just so we see it before it's coming. Thank you.
Next up, the question is,
fiscal responsibility, first of all, is everybody's responsibility. And it starts with the big government then it goes to the state, and then it goes to the city. I can tell you that the art museum would be a great example of a place that we probably could have spent money somewhere else for the goodness of, well, let's just talk South Huntsville right now, for the goodness of South Huntsville. Although I kind of agree with Barry, it's a nice thing to take care of your museum, but those are dollars spent, big dollars spent, that could have been better spent somewhere else, and we're arguing because we're representing you, it should have been down here. I will tell you though, there was a fiscal responsibility about a billboard that they were all worried about. An electronic billboard that was some ungodly amount of money that was being put up by the city. And I'll tell you, your voice got heard because it got shut down. Another example of an area of fiscal responsibility. I would tell you that, maybe I just had a brain dump there for a second, forgive me. Our roads. I kind of like the bypass that we just did. Until at 7 o'clock in the morning, I'm going over it and I'm back to bumper to bumper. So from a fiscal responsibility, where should we be spending our money? And I'm going to tell you right now, I don't believe the voters actually got to vote. And I would tell you as a council person, we need to know what you think are the right things to be spending on it. And when we're downtown representing you, we're actually fighting for what you want. Now folks, there are things that we got to do downtown. But just there was my brain dump. It was the parking garage. Wow. Parking still is pitiful down there, folks. When's the last time you've been to the Madison County Courthouse trying to find a parking space? But the placement of it might have been poor, or even having it might have been poor. I wasn't here for that process. But when you hear the people arguing and fighting about better roads, you hear the people fighting and arguing about better schools, you hear the people fighting about all these things we need to be doing in our town, and what are we doing? We're building a museum downtown. We're trying to put up a sign that almost got taken care of until some people spoke out in the community. So in the end, fiscal responsibility is all of ours, but it's the voice that gets heard. And I will tell you, you didn't get heard on the downtown parking garage, but you got heard on the billboard. Thank you. Well, thank you all for having us tonight, and greatly appreciate it. Well, I believe I'm the best candidate for 2 reasons. The most qualified and the most experienced. Well, why do you say that? Well, I've already run a small city for 3 years, where I overwatched $230 million a year of expenditures and $1 billion worth of construction, and only one project was late for 30 days based on weather. I believe in building relationships. I've done that for 5 years in this community, and I believe I already have a voice in Huntsville City. I've taken care of soldiers in peace and in war. And I feel like I've done a pretty good job of it, and I want to try to do it here too. So the bottom line is, I have served my country for 27 years. The time has come for me to serve this wonderful community. Vote John Olszewski, 24 August. Thank you.